Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining. I'm Reut. I lead the data science and marketing automation teams at Natural Intelligence. Now, I want you to take a quick second and think about 3 examples for human professions that were replaced by machine learning or artificial intelligence. Can you think of some? Probably you can, but it's not that easy, right? It's not like we see doctors or lawyers that have been replaced by machine learning. Even the typists in court aren't seem to go anywhere, right? Even though there are great speech-to-text mechanisms. So machine learning was shown to be very useful in the last few years, but if you think about it, it mainly gave some added value that simply didn't exist before, or it replaced some routine parts of human work, but it barely replaced a human profession as a whole, right? So what is it that makes it so hard to automate manual work? And this is what I'm going to talk about in today's lecture, how we try to automate some manual work at Natural Intelligence. So our mission is basically to shortlist the world, because the funny thing today is that the more options you have, the less happy you become. And there are so many options that it's becoming so hard to make a decision, and you always feel like you're missing something, right? So we do the research for you, and when it's time for you to make a decision, you have all the data and the different alternatives, so you can make an informed decision with confidence. We cover dozens of different business verticals and web services, like website builders, meal delivery services, mortgage, different kinds of loans, and plenty more. And we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on search engines like Google and Bing. Now, how do you set the click price of a search query? For example, would the cost of free website builder would be the same as mortgage loan? Obviously not, right? Or is it better to pay more for a click and get more traffic? Or is it better to pay less and have higher return on investment? So we call this the bidding problem, and our campaign managers are handling it for about 10 years now. They're very good at reading the performance statistics and connect it with the business context. And the thing is that the company had grown a lot. It keeps growing very fast. We already have about 50 campaign managers to handle this operation. And we want to cover more and more business verticals, and so we've asked ourselves, what do we need to do in order to cover all this work? It's either we automate it, right, or we bring more people. So we decide to automate it, and our marketing guys have tried several third-party tools, but the thing was that they didn't work. They couldn't beat the performance of the campaign managers. And this is when we decide to build an in-house product for that, and this is where I came into the picture. I know this bidding domain, and I have the background in data science, and so I found myself leading the data science and engineering teams that's supposed to make it happen. And we kind of realized that we have very, very high standards to meet. Any tool that we make that won't meet these performance standards simply won't be used. And this is how our journey starts in order to automate this manual work. Now, a while ago, a friend came to me and told me about another unsuccessful relationship he just had. And he was so frustrated. He felt like nothing is working for him. He keeps messing up things. And we're having this talk, and suddenly it occurred to me that these things are so similar, like building a good relationship and automating manual work using machine learning. So this is what I'm going to walk you through. First, I told him, hey, so make a pause and get yourself together, okay? Have you ever really thought what you're looking for? Did you make any mistakes? Is there anything you can do any differently? So try to imagine where do you see yourself in 3 years? And so in our case, we try to imagine how campaign management will look in 3 years. Is it going to be completely automated, or is there going to be a man in the loop? And just like in chess game, we don't plan just one step ahead, right? So we broke down this campaign management problem to building blocks. And we tried to estimate how effort each one requires and what's the gain. So obviously you can always start with those quick wins of low effort and high gain. But then, is it better to go to the mid-effort, mid-gain, or to the hard efforts and high gain? In our example, so we have those search queries, right? There are these queries that people are search for a lot, like mortgage rates. Okay, it has about it has millions of searches every month, compared to a query like best programs for first-time home buyers, which has about 20 searches a month. So in our case, we thought that machine learning would have the advantage over people in those small search queries where the data is sparse. And this is where we chose to begin. We've asked ourselves, what are we going to celebrate? Like in these examples of the high volume search terms, are we going to celebrate the Holy Grail or the periphery? And as I said, we started with the periphery. Looking back, I'm not sure if it was the right decision, but it definitely has its pros and cons, so make sure to think about it. We've asked whether we want to first eliminate all the manual work and automate everything, or is it better to first automate some and then improve upon on the financial side. And lastly, we made sure we searched if there are any blocks that can be fulfilled using a third-party tool. So we don't necessarily have to build everything from scratch. All right, so we have the strategy, right? Time to go one step closer to the ground. But you know, this field, it has its own rules, right? Like, you don't call a girl the next morning after your first date, right? So I know some of these rules can be very annoying and you don't completely understand them, but there are reasons for them. So we tried to learn all these work practices, and God, there were so many of them, and yes, they were so weird. But remember, they're working, right? So one example was that the campaign managers showed us that they don't necessarily set the same bid for the same search query with only plurals or singulars differences. For example, if someone is searching for background checks with plurals, probably he wants to make more than one check, right? Compared to someone who's looking for background check. So probably he's a more valuable customer. So we got to know all these work practices. And this is the time when you want to get to know her, right? Like, is she a coffee type of a girl or a beer? It's better to know if she prefers concerts or dance performance before you buy the tickets, right? So this is where we got our hands dirty and started to learn the data. And one of the first things that we tried, we know it's a textual data, right? It mainly contains of search queries that people search on Google. And we tried to apply word to vec. And can you guess which two words came out to be the most similar? So it was best and free. Why? Because they always show up in the same context. People are searching for free website builder or best website builder. free blog website or best blog website. So from the embedding point of view, it makes sense. But from the business point of view, these are just opposites, right? People who are searching for free probably aren't going to buy anything compared to those that are searching for the best products. I can imagine that you can think of some solutions for this problem. Just remember that in each industry, we don't have that much data, so the solution is not so trivial. And the important point is that you really get to know your data and what's inside it. And now that you know it, try to think what will make the trick. So we go on to model selection. And hey, it seemed that we tried several models and their performance seemed to be better than the current heuristics that campaign managers use. So it's a good sign. And as I told you, we have plenty of industries, and in a way, we had to conquer each one separately. So we're breaking it down, and as you can see in the blue bars, which are the current heuristics, in some industries, the heuristics performs better than our models. So in these cases, we searched for the missing features, and we added them to improve upon. And we saw that it did improve, while it didn't hurt the current ones. So the bottom line is important, but don't forget to look at this breakdown too. So, are we together? And how embarrassing is it when someone asks you that after the third date? But seriously, now it doesn't feel like you're single anymore, but you're still not committed, right? It's kind of a hybrid state that you have to acknowledge. So in our case, we have something that we think can work, but it has to be very resilient to human intervention because most of the work is still manual. And for the campaign managers, they suddenly have these automated parts which they don't completely understand and they don't really know how to monitor them. We try to test things and we don't know if they override our bids. So it has to be very resilient. You can also think about the autonomous car example. So imagine an autonomous car driving on the same road together with human drivers. How confusing is it for the drivers? And for those that make the car, it adds up so many use cases to cover this hybrid state, right? If it was like a one-day switch and suddenly only autonomous cars, it would have been much easier for them, right? But it never happens. It usually happens gradually. So this is a very important time to acknowledge this togetherness. And during this time, it's when we suddenly starting to see those things that bother us, right? But we don't want to blow it up. We want to take it one step at a time, show flexibility, and improve upon each time. So one of the solutions for this hybrid state was to provide a modular system. We broke down the bidding problem to a few models. So we have the search query bid, and we have bid adjustments on different segments, like age or gender or geo. And we have those plenty of industries. And just like those modular shelf systems in IKEA, each campaign manager could choose which one works for him. And where it doesn't work, it's fine. We can improve upon, we don't blow it up, we keep with this progress. And this is how, as time goes by, we find that we cover more and more use cases. So it allows us to have a good time to market because we don't wait for something perfect to cover all the use cases. We allow this graduality, and it allowed us to build a lot of trust. All right, so it seems that we have something working now, which is very nice, and it's time to move in together and test it out. But this is the time when she finds out that you always leave your shoes in the living room, right? And that the kitchen is always a mess and plenty other things, never mind. But if those defects aren't that bad, you can probably feel closer after some time. So we start testing, and it's still this hybrid state, right? And campaign managers, just when we started the test, they're telling us that one campaign cannot start before a certain date, and that another one must end before a certain date or just be excluded for a few days. So our test group keeps changing. So we allowed this modular state by taking it into consideration in the significance calculation. As you can see in the flat part of the chart, these were the excluded days. So we took it into consideration in the significance. Also on the cluster level, which combined plenty of industries. So at the beginning, we have only a few campaigns, and the more campaigns we add, we expect the effect to grow, and also the confidence intervals, right? And then if we want to take out some campaigns, we must not forget that they were there, because the accumulated metric contains them. So we have to make sure to only account for the days that they were part of the test. All right, if we had a good test, it's great. But the thing is that now the system is exposed to the users. They were the ones that used to do it until a while ago. And this is the time when you need to stop playing games. Like, it's there, they see it. Even if they don't admit it, I think that part of them doesn't necessarily want it to work. So in order to keep building this trust, we allowed a lot of transparency to help them understand what's going on. Again, it's some kind of a black box, and we try to help them understand what's happening. So for example, each time we published new bids, we also showed the bid change distribution and the expected scale in cost. So, okay, they don't understand the algorithm, but they kind of know what's going on. We also shared the important features and the steps we took in setting the bid. So they can somehow understand at least part of what's going on, even if they don't understand exactly what's inside. All right, if you came up thus far, I think it's time to say congratulations. You have something working, and you passed the test, and the thing is that now you want to make sure that you don't mess it up. You want to make sure that things work as you expect, right? And so we keep 4 levels of monitoring. The first one is on the input layer, where we do the data pre-processing. We monitor metrics like data size or revenue to make sure that we don't feed the system with garbage. The second one is the output layer, which is the bids, right? And in each 2 following runs, we want to make sure that we don't expect it to change a lot. So if we see that the output did change a lot, like outside of some boundaries, we don't publish the bids, and we send an alert so we can look into it. The third level, we call it the performance layer on the campaign level, and this is possible actually if your system is only partially deployed. So imagine that we have it deployed on some parts and it's not deployed on other parts. This allows us to see the trends, right? Because if we see like a drop in the clicks, is there anything wrong? I don't know, maybe people just search less, right? But if we have our part and the current part, we can see if our clicks going down faster than the current state. So we still kind of have something to compare it to. And the last layer is on the element, the most granular level. Here, by the way, we do use a third-party tool for anomaly detection. And so we track millions of records here. Each element, we track the impressions, the clicks, and a few more. And if there is an anomaly, we can know about it and, again, look into it. All right. So I think we can say that one journey had come to an end. And this is where a new one starts. We're expanding. We try to do more and more things and cover more and more use cases. And at this point, we have to learn many more things. Maybe those hard building blocks I mentioned earlier. And this is the place where we need to carefully listen to the feedbacks to those campaign managers who are using it and get their feedback and improve upon. All right. What a journey it was. It was very challenging, yet it was very fulfilling. So again, I think it's really untrivial to automate a manual work. The more I talk to people about it, I see that machine learning really usually it does things that no one ever did before, right? So let me shortlist it for you, because that's what we do best at Natural Intelligence. We started with the before, building the transformation strategy, getting to know the work practices and the data. We went through the thing, selecting the right model, acknowledge the hybrid state, provide a modular system, and test it out. Lastly, we go to the reflection. We provide transparency, we monitor, and we always keep analyzing and improving. So next time your system aims to automate manual work, hopefully you'll find these steps useful. Until then, I hope you all have good partnerships. Thank you very much for listening.